This video was requested by a patron. Patrons in the top tier and YouTube members in the top tier get, among other benefits, the ability to request future video topics for me to cover. Click the card in the upper right corner to become a patron, or click the join button below to learn how you can become a YouTube member today. And now, on with our feature presentation. September 20th, 1992. It's week 3 of the NFL season, and we've got an interconference game on our hands over at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia between the Denver Broncos and the Philadelphia Eagles. On paper, this is a highly anticipated matchup, and it's not hard to see why, seeing as you've got two teams who both enter this one at 2-0, and two teams led by some of the best and most exciting quarterbacks in the game, in John Elway and Randall Cunningham. If you win this game and start the season 3-0, you've pretty much got a spot in the playoffs locked up. Even though it's super early on, and we're not even a quarter of the way through the season, since the playoffs expanded to 12 teams in 1990, every single team to start 3-0 after 3 weeks made it to the playoffs, with 5 making it in 1990 and 5 making it in 1991. One team was going to be able to keep their undefeated season alive and keep this dream start to the year going. And when all was said and done, this game was an absolute beatdown and was a fantastic performance in just about every phase imaginable for the Eagles. Because when the final whistle sounded, the Eagles took complete control of this game from start to finish, and took it convincingly by a final score of 30-0. To give you an idea on just how much of a bloodbath this was, because this truly might have been one of the greatest games ever played by the Eagles as a team, whereas the Eagles picked up 20 first downs, the Broncos picked up 4. Just 4. 1 first down per quarter on average. The Broncos, despite calling 23 passing plays, picked up just 30 net passing yards, or roughly 1 yard per play. The Broncos averaged just over 3 yards per carry, and only picked up 82 yards total on the day, while going 0 for 11 on third down, and while holding onto the ball for just over 20 minutes of game time, meaning that 2 out of every 3 minutes, the ball was held by the Eagles. Philly outgained Denver 388-82 in the yardage department, meaning approximately that for every yard the Broncos got, the Eagles got 4. Randall Cunningham had a great day in the office, throwing for 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 146.7, posting one of the best games of his career. As for John Elway, yeah, not so much, seeing as he went 8 for 18, completing just 44% of his passes for 59 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 29.6, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. At no point was the outcome of this game ever in any serious doubt. The Eagles were on cruise control for just about the entire contest, and were clearly the better side on this day. So you would think that in a game like this, which ended with the Eagles shutting out the Broncos and winning by 5 possessions, that there wouldn't be a ton of drama, right? Well, that's where you'd be wrong. Very, very wrong. You might not have known it at the time, but in the over 90-year history of the Eagles franchise, this game might have produced some of the craziest drama in franchise history. Now on the field, there really wasn't a lot that happened in this game. There was not a lot of drama there by any means. But off the field? Oh man, that is a completely different story. There have been tons of fights between fans in the stands, especially at Veterans Stadium. There's a reason that the vet had a jail put into it. And this one might be the craziest of them all, because it didn't involve drunken fans whose tensions ran too high because one of them said something, or one was rooting for a different team. This fight involved a player's wife. Seriously. In the middle of this Eagles-Broncos game that you've been watching this whole time, in what should have been a celebratory and glorious day for everyone associated with the Eagles, it was anything but that, due to a bizarre controversy involving safety Wes Hopkins, his wife, and, well, someone that we'll get to in just a bit. Because this is the story behind what has to be, considering all the circumstances, one of the craziest fights in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles franchise. Before I talk about the actual fight in question, we need some context to understand the main player involved in our story, how good he was, and most importantly, just what the heck was going on in his personal life that led to this. This man right here is Wes Hopkins, and there were a ton of great players on that Philadelphia defense throughout the 1980s and the early 1990s. You're talking about guys like Reggie White, the late great Jerome Brown, Seth Joyner, Eric Allen, and Clyde Simmons, just to name a few. But outside of White for obvious reasons, you can make an argument that at his peak, no player was more important and more influential to that defense than Hopkins was, because he truly was one of the best free safeties in the entire league. And if Hopkins wasn't the best, then he was one of the best for sure. He was about as hard-hitting of a safety as they came, as not many safeties were better in a one-on-one tackling situation than he was. You needed a safety to come in on a blitz and deliver a shot at the quarterback? He could do that. You needed a safety to just knock the ever-loving daylight out of a guy? He could also do that. And if you needed a safety to make great plays on the ball and excel in pass coverage, oh, you bet that he could do that. He truly could do it all. There's a reason that Hopkins was highly acclaimed throughout his entire career, which will become very important later on, and especially during the 1985 season, when he was named an AP First-Team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler. And there's a reason in particular why Cowboy fans still shudder when they hear his name to this day. In fact, by the time that Hopkins finished his career, he would end with the fourth most interceptions in franchise history with 30, and only 4 off of the all-time lead. Today, he still ranks inside the top 5, and quite comfortably I might add. Seeing as the next closest active player is Darius Slay with 7, I don't think Hopkins is relinquishing that top 5 spot with picks anytime soon. Said former Eagles head coach Marion Campbell, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, on how good Hopkins was. If there's a better guy than Wes Hopkins at free safety, he's got to be Mandrake. He keeps coming up with something different every week. The great players do that. Long story short, Hopkins was really, really good, and is somewhat forgotten today in terms of great Eagles players. But he was an unsung hero in so many ways, and the Eagles do not have the success defensively that they do without him. Having said that, even though he was a great player on the field, off the field when it came to his personal life, well, that was kind of a mess. If faith was a spectrum, where the end of one side is I'll never leave you no matter what, and I can't even imagine the thought of living a life with someone else, the other side is whatever the heck Wes Hopkins was doing. Because for his entire career, he was known for having a bunch of mistresses. Even after marrying his wife in February of 1987, a woman named Erica, Hopkins went through women as often as a 7th grader goes through mitzvah dresses because they've been invited to so many and they can't wear the same dress twice. Oh, the horror. Now, I don't want to say that Erica never minded this. Of course she did, like anyone would. Erica wanted someone who was faithful, especially since they had a kid together. But in her mind, it came with the territory of being married to a professional athlete, and one that was as good as Wes Hopkins was. Obviously, we know that this is an absolutely ridiculous thing to think now, as there are plenty of athletes with stable marriages that wouldn't dare to think of cheating on their significant others. It does not come with the territory. But in the eyes of Erica, because this was Wes Hopkins we were talking about, as in one of the best free safeties in the game, it came with the territory. Said writer Mark Bowden, who wrote on this matter, it was part of the life. The athletes expected it, the way they expected their gear to be laid in their lockers on game day. Wes and Erica had never fully worked through the issue of other women before they married. It hadn't seemed necessary. He added, Erica knew of dozens of other similar cases with players on this and other teams. The women all lived in fear of it happening to them. They coped with all sorts of rationalizations. The temptations were ever present. Men like Wes had grown up without fathers, without normal family structures, so they didn't understand how to keep a family together. The game and its sophomoric fraternity atmosphere went to the men's heads, or pants. So for years, this had happened, and for years, Erica just let it go, knowing that it came with the territory, but knowing that some resentment was building inside of her. And a few times, Erica thought about leaving, as anyone would in that situation. Even though Wes gaslit her into thinking that she was the problem, and that this was to be expected, and even though they got into their fair share of fights over the matter as the years went on, Erica stayed. Why did she stay? Well, there were two main reasons, even though Wes had shown no signs of remorse and no signs of changing. Number one, the year was 1992. Wes Hopkins was 6 days away from turning 32 years old. His days in the NFL were most likely numbered. Heck, he was already starting to lose a fair bit of speed. The days of the women swooning all over him, and the temptation of this, would soon be done. Hopkins didn't have a lot of time left in the league, just going off of history and the position that he played. He wouldn't be traveling to a new city every week. Maybe Wes was doing this simply because he couldn't help himself, but there was a light at the end of the tunnel when this would all be done with. It's almost like how if you're at a job and you really want to quit because the boss is making your life a living nightmare. But you know that part of why he's making your life a nightmare, and part of why he's acting like this, is because there is a big event coming up in a few weeks that requires all resources and all hands on deck. So once that's done, everything should revert back to normal. And that's what Erica was hoping for, especially since the two had started a family together. But number two, she genuinely loved watching football, and genuinely loved watching her husband, as in the man you've been watching this whole time, play and completely terrorize opposing offenses. Obviously, she hated the infidelity and the way that Wes would treat her, but she loved the football lifestyle. As Bowden said, Erica did love to watch him play. She lived for the sunny autumn and chilly winter Sundays, the gathering of the wives in the lounge, all of them looking so terrific, and watching the game together out in the stands, cheering their men on, then getting together afterwards for nice dinners out on the town, where they would be received like royalty at local restaurants. She called football season my time. Game days were what made all the bad things worthwhile. And if you know anything about anyone, it's that you don't mess with their time. If there's something that someone enjoys and a time that they look forward to every week, you do not mess with it, especially if their life is pretty bad otherwise. And after Wes lied yet again to Erica, saying that he had broken things off with a new mistress named Amy at Jerome Brown's funeral, but Erica found out that this was a lie, and Amy and Wes were meeting regularly, Erica reached sort of her breaking point. She had given up. Erica knew that, again, there probably wasn't too much time left for Wes to have his lifestyle. So she made Wes a deal. Do whatever you want with Amy. I don't care. But whatever you do, all I ask, the one thing I ask, is that you do not bring her to the games. Don't give her a ticket. Don't have her sit near me. Just don't do that. You can have your affair, but just don't mess with my time on Sundays. That seems simple enough, right? Well, during this Eagles-Broncos game, which Erica attended with her 16-year-old nephew, guess who was there? That's right, Amy. The one boundary that Erica asked Wes to respect, something as simple as not having Amy show up to the game, and he couldn't even do that. And when Erica saw Amy in the stands, oh man, let's just say all hell broke loose. Erica and her nephew approached Amy, and what started off as a heated conversation turned into Erica flying down the stairs and turning into the world's greatest MMA fighter. More than half a decade of resentment and boiling over frustrations finally spilled over in this one moment. As Bowden wrote, Erica came flying down the stairs at full speed. Her sails swelled with outrage, maternal, wifely, and just. She clobbers Amy in the face, and the force of the blow on her charge sends the woman reeling. Amy falls and rolls down 9 rows to the bottom of the steps, with Erica right after her, then jumps up without even a look back and flees. Erica tag teams her nephew, who starts beating up on her, leading to even more people getting involved in the fight, with her nephew getting jumped by Eagle fans who don't know the situation and are understandably mortified at a teenage guy beating up on a woman. Security then tried breaking it up, but it's no use. The other wives now know about the situation and know what's going on, and they take turns, alongside Erica, just beating up on Amy. And amazingly enough, Erica doesn't get ejected from the game. No charges are pressed. Security doesn't do anything. They know. They understand her pain. Plus, it was the entire coalition of Eagles' wives on her side. No way was security going to do anything about that. And they also figured that this was going to be the last time that Erica was going to be at an Eagles game anyways. Because the last one to leave the stadium that day was none other than Erica Hopkins, who waited until Wes came out of the locker room and came to the realization that she had it for a while now, but was too afraid to admit. We're done. As she said while Wes was receiving his IV, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to be humiliated like I was humiliated. Do you have any idea how hurtful that was? Finding her there at the game? That was the one thing I asked of you. This is supposed to be my time. I'm well respected in the organization and with the wives. These people are my friends, Wes. And you have to flaunt this girl in front of them? You don't disrespect me like that. You could see her 6 days of the week, but she didn't have to go to the game. Just like that, Erica kicks him out of the house. And while the two stayed married just for their kid, Montana, they lived apart from each other. Just like that, Erica's life had completely changed. Just like that, Erica reached her breaking point. Hopkins finished his career with the Philadelphia Eagles, last playing in 1993, although he clearly was not the same player that he once was, seeing as his 40-yard dash time was in the low 5s, and head coach Rich Code had to be convinced at the very last minute to bring him back on the team in the first place due to his lack of speed. Unfortunately, Hopkins died in 2018 at the age of 57 due to CTE. Now, whether the CTE played a part in any of this that happened, I don't know. I don't want to speculate, and it's not an excuse for sure, but it is just something to keep in mind. The entire saga with this man right here, Wes Hopkins, his wife, and his mistress is an absolutely insane one. Just to recap everything, Wes cheats on Erica with Amy. Wes doesn't even try to hide it. Erica reluctantly accepts this, so long as Wes doesn't bring her to any of the games. Wes somehow violates this one very easy rule during the game against the Broncos. And when Erica finds out, Veterans Stadium erupts into a war zone, where the drama in the stands trumped anything that was happening on the field. Because September 20th, 1992 was not just a bloodbath on the field. It was also, albeit for a very different reason, a bloodbath off the field. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.